Hey everybody, welcome to Commercial Construction Elevate the Industry podcast, hosted by yours truly, Dave Presida. Thanks for joining us today. The purpose of the podcast is simple. We want to be able to show you the industry through the eyes of others, me and some of my solo podcasts, and through the eyes of industry leaders, two of which we have here today. I'm really happy to have Michael and Liam Coakley join us today, co-presidents, principals of CJ Coakley Company Incorporated in Falls Church, Virginia. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
You know, we've worked together for a long time, and in all transparency, I work with them now. But it started when I was a subcontractor and you were a contractor back in like 1996. And I'll say this, through all the stuff that's happened with the industry, with us personally, we remain friends, and I really appreciate that, and I thank you for coming. So Michael, why don't you start? CJ Coakley Company, tell us what you do today.
So we are a very large interior drywall, plaster, acoustic tile company. We do rain screen, and we also have a prefabrication business,
Which we're going to get into heavy in a minute.
Right.
You have a tagline, Liam. It says, a rich history and a bright future. So let's start with the rich history. Tell us how CJ Coakley started in the first several years.
So my father started out as a plasterer. He worked for a large plastering company, Rubino and Ferris, and they gave him an opportunity to become a superintendent. He did that for a couple years. During that time, there was a lot of Italians that were in the business, and it was really kind of frowned on that they gave him the opportunity as being an Irishman
Coakley's Irish?
Yeah, there you go. So he, there was a lot of Italians that really were, angry with them giving him the opportunity. And then he took the opportunity, did it for a number of years, and then decided to start our company, CJ Coakley, in 1962.
So do the math. How many years you've been in business? 58. 58. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So mainly a plastering company. Plaster changed though, and he had to change with it. Now,
Correct.
Yeah, I was talking to a gentleman last week who's in the prefab business, exterior wall panels, and his father was a plasterer, but he chose not to go into drywall. Drywall removed plaster for the most part, right?
Right.
But your father did.
What kind of happened in our history is that evolved into fireproofing because it was a mud mixed material, and then spray application, and in some instances they sprayed plaster. And then obviously drywall came into play, and then acoustics, so on and so forth.
It was either get into drywall or to get out of business, because most people weren't able to survive in just plaster because the trade was going well.
Think about the difference between tradespeople now and tradespeople then. I mean, that was like the job, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody worked with their hands. What do you see today with kids coming out of high school?
No, we've talked about it for a while. I mean, Michael's been more involved in, getting, trying to get trades back in the school because it's been frowned upon for so many years. And, let's face it, not everybody can go to college and graduate from college. There's plenty of other, good paying jobs that, are worth people getting involved in. And that's what we're trying to promote. I'll let Michael talk a little bit more about it.
No Child Left Behind really hurt us as an industry because high schools were all being graded on whether or not their kids went to college. So they immediately started taking access away from the trades to the high school students. So for the last 20 years, it's been very hard to get in to see them. So as a result, we've got a lot fewer kids in construction. And then, when kids don't graduate from college and stuff like that, they never want to go into the trades because that's like, a bad thing in the eyes of their parents or whatever. So, but the tide has turned and things are improving. No Child Left Behind was updated so that trades are part of what they are graded on. So that's looked at as furthering your education. So we've started to get access to go back into schools, and our apprentice program has picked up considerably in the last couple of years.
Yeah, not everybody's made for college, but I agree. And the trades are hurting for it. Manpower's hurting. That's why these walls behind you are are being more effectively done in a shop. We'll get to that. Talk about your father personally. I mean, was he an immigrant? Was he born here? Tell me.
So our dad was born here. His father was an immigrant from Ireland, and his mother died when he was in the hospital being born, and so his father, my father was actually raised by our aunt for 3 years. My grandfather did a lot of different things to get us acted back together, but once he remarried, he collected my dad, and then they moved to Ireland. He went to Ireland until he was 18, and when he turned 18, he was an American citizen. One of his best friends, our Uncle Jimmy, came and told him he was going to go to America, and he said, "Well, I'm coming with you." And so they came over on a boat, and
With Uncle Jimmy. If I recall, and I never met your father, I never had the pleasure. He got sick. Tell us about that, because I think that's what really led to a lot of change in your company.
So in 1990, he got the shingles, and before he was diagnosed with the shingles, it crossed his spine.
Oh.
And so once it crosses your spine, it never leaves you. So you have it for life. So he was in a lot of pain, and then he mustered on like a champ for 7 years. If you'd met him, you'd never know that he was having problems with it. But that compromised his immune system considerably, because his white blood cells were always fighting the shingles. So then he got a blood disorder, and then he got two forms of cancer: colon cancer and jaw cancer.
He got lymphocytic leukemia first in so it was like 1990.
Chronic CLL?
And I can't remember exactly, but that's when the shingles and some of the other things start, because his immune system was so compromised that those other diseases like shingles came in. And I was at home at the time, and at 25, we just graduated from college, and my mom came in and was like, "Liam, we gotta see this." I'm like, what's going on? And so I went in there, and like Michael said, the shingles had passed over his spine, and never to get rid of it. Tried everything and anything. Even went on the Concorde over to Ireland to see a few gypsies. Probably wouldn't want you to know that.
You just told everybody.
Well, in any event, he
passed.
tried everything to get.
He passed in that when?
97.
97. So he started his own business, got into spray fireproofing. When did CJ Coakley start doing drywall and ceilings?
1972.
It's been a long time.
Okay.
Doug
It's
Ayers,
evolved a long
when did he
time.
get started with the company?
Doug Ayers came in
1970.
1971. So, and Doug Ayers was very instrumental with my dad in getting us involved with getting into drywall. And then my dad was very involved with AWCI, which is the Association of Walls and Ceilings. A lot of the people in the industry were moving into that direction. So that's how he got into that marketplace.
So Doug came to you, and for those of you who don't know Doug Ayers, he's like a gem in the industry. He's unbelievable. He still works with you, right?
Yep.
He works part-time,
And
3 days a week.
Doug also brought Doug Roach shortly after he joined our team. He brought in Doug Roach, who's been with us for 45 years.
And there's another
47
gem,
years.
different kind of gem. Doug, I love you, but he's a different kind of gem.
Oh, yeah.
No question about it. They're both
Very different people, but
Yeah.
awesome people.
great mentors and very well admired.
And you were project managers at the time.
Yes.
So let's talk about the next 5 to 10 years personally, your growth in the business
Sure.
under Doug's
Doug Ayers-
tutelage.
Doug Ayers took over the company and started running the company for us. A little bit, actually, about a year before my dad passed. He actually had about 6 months of retirement before he had started having really bad issues. But Doug started taking over the company. He was very good at mentoring the two of us, always trying to groom us to take over the business. very helpful in keeping us involved in a lot of the financial decisions of the company. We were very involved in what we were taking, how we were going about doing things. So he kept us in the loop on a lot of things,
which is a learned skill. I mean, you just don't automatically know
correct
how you should
we were
run
very
the company.
fortunate to be involved in lots of great projects and great people. IRS national headquarters, where we work together.
That's where I met you.
Almost 900,000 square feet, 3 buildings, Redskins Stadium, the VA hospital, Dulles Airport. I mean, expansion.
I worked on that one with you guys too. At night.
It goes on
At
and on.
night.
Yeah, did many night jobs.
Anna was
all
on that
hours.
job.
Yeah,
Anna Cease.
that's a funny story. So Jack, the guy from I forget the name of the company, but Mortensen was doing the construction on the job, and I came and got involved in the job and immediately had all kinds of heated conversations.
Imagine that.
And, about getting work done, not getting work done, and took a while, but got the rapport with a lot of the superintendents, and at the end of the job, Jack, the guy, in his trailer off site, around the corner from Dulles Airport, and he says, it's kind of hard to believe I'm going to say this, but you're exactly what this job needed. That was quite a compliment.
That is a compliment, right? Sideways, but a compliment.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That you guys, did you grow up working in the business, like summers and things?
Oh, yeah.
Everything.
Laborers?
So I started working when I was 14,
Mm-hmm.
working in the warehouse and then out on fireproofing jobs. And we were the janitors of the company from 1984, 85 to 1988.
We'd get, finish school and go to the office, vacuum, clean the trash, clean the kitchens.
I'll tell you
throw it
what.
all out.
Your pop, right?
Yeah.
That's what he was about.
Oh yeah.
Hard day's work.
Oh yeah.
When did you know that you wanted to make money? Was there a time you said, you know what, I'm built for this?
I was about 12 years old, and it was a huge snowstorm, and I had always had customers in our neighborhood to rake leaves, shovel snow, the whole 9 yards, and so it was one of the hugest snowstorms, 3 feet, and I go to Mr. Spangler 2 doors down, and I'm like, all right, let's work a deal. What's it gonna cost? What are you gonna shovel the snow for? And I said $70. This is like 70, I forget what year, early 70s, and 70, late 70s, 79, whatever year it was. Anyways, so he agreed, and so I go out to the front of I'm loaded. I got 6 different layers of clothes on and hats, and I'm ready to go. So I go out and I start at the front of where all the slush is and everything, and I start by the road, and I start 1 foot at a time throwing in the snow. 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, the first layer's off. 10 more minutes, the next layer's off. Half an hour later, I'm in a t-shirt and just working away. 2 hours later, I'm got about 5 feet done, and this guy drives by in a pickup truck with a plow on it, and he goes, "Hey, can I give you a hand?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How much?" He said, $50. I said, "You're on." I go to the front and I do his walkway. In about 30 minutes, the whole thing is done. I go over to collect, and I go to the door. He's shocked that I'm even done. I said,
that was your first subcontractor.
That's right. I gave him his $50. I took my $20, and I'm out of
and
there.
you were happy. That's
going.
funny. Did you always know you were going to work in a business?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was just,
there was no doubt.
Yeah.
We always, like I said, on Saturdays, if we had to twist hanger wire for, things that had to be ready for a job, that's what we did. We got our friends to help. I mean, that's what we
you
did.
just never know what that does for you. When you're a kid, you don't realize how it's like molding you.
Oh yeah.
That discipline and everything else. Everybody else running around having fun. You guys are working, but You had obviously had a good company to grow into. Talk about your family members who are in the business with you. There's 4 of you, right?
Well, there's currently Liam and I are in the construction side. Maria's in charge of all of our companies, and then we have a large real estate holding in Merrifield and Falls Church, and my brother Jim and my sister Maria work on that. And then we have a charitable foundation as well that we work. So between all 3, there's plenty to do.
So there's 3 businesses under one roof, if you will. Is there any crossover or leverage, or are they just standalones?
They're standalones for the most part. We help out build outs on some of our tenant work, but that's about it.
Pretty much all that stuff we do in house, and we help out with the all the packages in terms
on
of
the construction side. You'll be there, right?
But between the 2 businesses, that you would think that they would be helpful between the 2, but when things go down in commercial construction, they usually go down in real estate as well. So so when it's bad for one, it's bad for both. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. So you just have to be conservative and not crazy with what you got, and keep enough things keep things in the buildings and in the company that you can weather the storms.
Speaking of storms, I mean, you guys have been around for 58 years. You've seen the early 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw the late 80s, early 90s, 2001 after the dot-com bust, and then the big one. How did you weather the storm? Was it just, you're good business, but you had to be prudent financially too.
Oh yeah. Well, when you get into a tough cycle, you have to knuckle down, and you have to try and monitor where's your core, and make sure that you save your core, so that when you get out of it, you have those guys to rely on as you rally forward. You have to take the right jobs going into a bad situation, because you got to make sure that the people who are with have money, and they're not going to leave you holding the bag in the middle of it. It's bad enough to have stuff like that happen to you in a good time, but you really can't have anything like that happen in a bad time. So, on those times, you got to knuckle down, and sometimes you have to tighten your belt, and it's not fun.
So I would assume you leaned on relationships too.
Oh yeah.
And I say this because from personal experience, I remember going when I worked with component assembly. I was on the West Coast, and we were good, and what we offered was the same and maybe even less expensive than the other guy. But you know what the other guys did? The same thing I would have done. Look, I've been doing business with you for 30 years, and I need this job, right?
Yeah, right.
So there's relationships go a long way.
They do.
Yeah.
I think also too that there comes opportunity too in bad times too. Unfortunately, in those times, people go out of business, and we picked up some good people during the downturns and other business ventures too, in terms of those opportunities they show themselves. So preparing yourselves for being ready for something that might be a good thing to happen. So those are things you look for too.
I think too, you find out where the bottom is in a lot of cases, even with manufacturers.
Right.
And and it's not so much an advantage because other people are going to be in similar situations. But I think that when times are really tough, you're getting better people you're working next to and for, because the better supers are on the job. Sure. So there's some advantages. When things are super busy, everybody's super busy, but sometimes the margins, as you well know, could be better. Anyway, so that brings you forward to like 2010-ish. You got your first rain screen job. Now, for those of you who don't know what rain screen is, it's this stuff. It's the facade that gets put on the building as just that. It's a feature. It's not a waterproofing thing. It's nothing like that. But you saw that years ago.
Oh yeah.
So what was your first meaningful job?
We had plenty of rain screen contractors or product people trying to get us involved with rain screen since probably 2001. But at that time, we were so busy, it was just, there was no way we could give it the time that it needed to get involved in that business. So when things started slowing down real bad in 2009, 2010, we figured, drywall work is just getting cheaper. The work on the outside is getting more money. So let's see what we can do to get involved with that. We had a job called 401 M Street. We were doing for Clark, and we had the interior of the job, and they had 24,000 feet of rain screen on the job, and it was a product from Germany. No one's ever heard of these people. The salesman was a really weird dude, and at any rate, they asked us if we would look at it, and we took a look at it before we started the job, and it was a lot of risk and not a lot of reward. So we took a pass. So at any rate, it was actually beneficial for us because they took 18,000 feet of the rain screen off the job and turned it into stucco, which we picked up. So we got a big change order to go to stucco, and then Clark came back to us and they said, look, we got 4,000 feet of the stuff left in the job. They said, give us a number to put this 4,000 feet in, and we'll figure it out. So we gave them a very high number, and they didn't like the number. We're like, look, we don't know anything about this product. We don't know anything about the company that we're dealing with, and we don't know anything about this guy who's the go-between, and it really doesn't seem like it's a good deal for us. That's our number. If you don't like it, go find someone else. So at any rate, they came back to us and they said, okay, we'll give you the job. Well, then about 6 months later, the owner came back, and apparently the city rejected his change to stucco.
Oh boy!
And we had to go to 12,000 feet of rain screen, and then the next thing we know, we ended up with 16,000 feet of it. And we told them what our number was, and they had to deal with it. So the owner was very angry. We ended up buying the product. The install went really well for us. We did really well on the job. And then, Clark just kept calling us, asking us to price more rain screen work. We did probably 6 jobs in a row for them, and then we were off to the races.
Guten Tag. Anyway, you'll get that in a minute. I've been in the air barrier business for 20 plus years, from when it was a single asphaltic, peel and stick, impermeable membrane to what it is today. It's a big part of the building science. The business has changed. There are several manufacturers in it, but I choose today to deal with Dorken, a German-based company. Not only are they competitively priced, their technical support is great, and mainly, I can always count them. They're there when I need them, in the field or during the bid. The biggest single differentiator between Dorken and other manufacturers is they have a simple system. An example, on a previous job, we have 5 different products to do the same thing that Dorken gives me with 2 products. So Dorken, I thank you for that. My workers thank you. My clients thank you. I would urge you to check Dorken out at their website, dorken.com. That's dorken.com. So, Liam, the difference between interior work, the labor to material ratio versus the exterior, how do you see that?
Clearly the interior work is more labor intense, and the materials are next to nothing, and the outside materials the exact opposite. So your materials are very expensive, and your labor is very little, so your risk is mitigated.
Yeah, and there's no, you do air barrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the risk, it's not like it's not like you're waterproofing the building. Although some people say the air barrier is waterproof, you got to be careful about that. You shed water. The air barrier allows moisture in and out. Talk about the bright future, because rain screen is part of that.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, tell us what you do in your shop down below where we're sitting right now.
So about 4 years ago, we started talking between us about, we have to find better ways to do the work that we're doing, because we're having problems getting done. Work we're doing is getting more dangerous because the buildings are getting taller. So we're trying to figure a way to do a lot of the outside work from the inside. And while we were doing that, we had a rapid progression of really interesting things happen in a row. So we started talking about wanting to do this, and next thing we know, this warehouse became available. So, and then we talked our sister into letting us have half the building. And then Liam was home with his wife to see his in-laws, and he runs into the next door neighbor who's a custom home builder who's getting tired of chasing all the work and was just like to build things. So Liam said, well, why don't you meet my brother and we'll talk about it. So we meet him, and Chris Williams becomes our first employee to come over into our prefab shop right after we got the space available to us. So he comes along, and then within 30 days, the folks from FrameCAD come into our office and talk to us about their equipment. And their equipment uses a 3D model to make your exterior wall components with a steel making machine. So
pre-punch,
pre-build, and it's a really interesting
rapid assembly.
So we purchased 2 pieces of equipment from them with no small amount of money, and we set up the warehouse so that we could use those pieces of equipment to start making wall panels. Well, in order to do that, we needed a BIM modeler, and within 3 weeks, I got a phone call from a friend of mine from Denver that he knew this girl who was looking for work in Washington as an engineer. Could I refer her to a couple engineering companies? I was like, well, how about I refer her to me? So she came in and we told her what we were doing, and she got all excited about what we were trying to do, and she jumped right to the modeling that we needed, and she understood it really fast. And then as soon as we got her off the ground, then we got a phone call from my friend Dave Persida.
Imagine that.
Yeah, just looking to change jobs, and
which brings us here. So we've been working together intensely for the last 2 years and maybe a month. What's different about what you do is you're doing infill panels. Now we'll talk about what's next, but infill panels is way different than what I used to erect exterior wall prefabricated panels. It's the same thing. It was welded instead of screwed, but this going way back to the days in Atlantic City in the 80s. And it was more then about cost, because a union worker on the job doing stick frame it cost too much money, where you could prefab it and ship it, and then all you had to do was pay a union erector. That was it. Now it's like schedules are critical. So you must leverage, I know you do, you leverage the schedule savings to get the job.
Exactly.
How does that, what do you tell the client?
Well,
we tell them all different kinds of things. We bring them into the shop. We show them how it all goes together, how we can save time on the job, per the different activities, because they're combined. So then we're putting the metal studs, the sheathing, and the air barrier on all in the shop, sending it out into the field, and then all we have is the transition joints to fill. So there's time savings that the GC gets to benefit on the job, and they get early drying times and all different kinds of things that really make the job go well for them.
The effect on the job is dramatic because, as you know, when you're doing stick frame construction, a lot of it you're doing by elevation instead of doing it by floor. So, when you're able to say, okay, I've got a framing schedule to do the framing of the building, and we can say, okay, well, in that time frame, we can do the framing, the sheathing, and the air barrier all once, and you're done. Every floor you're picking up a week and a half on what they normally would have on all those activities. So the more we combine and the higher you go, the more time we're saving them. and then the interior goes a lot faster because you're not waiting. And if they can get the windows to follow us at the same pace, then we get everything we get everybody going in the building a lot faster.
And I think what I've seen personally is that if you have something they need, you got to be of value. So before this, you were of value because you're good at what you do what you say you're going to do, and they can count on you. But if you're not the low price, you might not get the job.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. That's what I think differentiates this. Plus, I know you leverage the exterior wall to get the rain screen. So
correct.
You're getting the rain screen because you're in the right spot. You're putting the exterior wall on. You're tying together the air barrier, and now the rain screen could be worth 4 or 5 times what the wall is worth.
From the owner and the general contractor's perspective, it's great because right now on normal construction, there's 5 guys that point their finger whenever there's a problem in the building, and now you got a single source all the way through. So for them, for the reduced headaches on the job and the reduced liability, it just makes more sense for them. It's okay for them to pay a little bit more to do that. So you've got them in a good spot at that point.
If they engage you early, they can shape the rest of the buys around the schedule that you offer, which is, again, because if you did the building in a month and it took the window guy 6 months to get his windows in, it doesn't matter.
Sense, right?
But if they buy it based on what you guys said, yeah. So what are some of the key jobs that you're working on now where you're doing prefab?
Capital One,
West Roslyn, the Yards, Parcel G, and we're getting ready to start City Ridge. What, in 3 weeks?
City Ridge is about getting started now, but that was the 6th building job. Liam, you got us there because remember we went to Whiting Turner's office in Greenbelt, was it? Yeah. And that started the whole thing. And the guy, forget his name, the guy that we're working for wasn't even at that meeting, but we gave him a package, we talked to him, and he took it back to his people. Next thing you know, we get a call, which is really, it's different. So I know it's different for me, and I've sold stuff my whole life. That's what I do. But never has it been, this intense, this early, and quite frankly, this fruitful. It's been pretty good. So tell us about Maria. I know she's a big deal. I've met her several times. She's professional. She knows her stuff.
Oh yeah. So Maria is she keeps good tabs on us. Makes sure we don't do anything that we shouldn't do financially. Growing up, we both parents working 12, 14-hour days. So when we came home from school, she would be in charge most of the times while our parents weren't home. So growing up, she was Santa Claus. She was lots of different things. So she's just been an awesome person in our lives, and a great part of our business and a great part of our adulthood.
Yeah, she's very special. That's for sure. It's hard to get it all in one set of words, but she's a great mother, a great friend, a great business person. She's a great wife. She's got 4 beautiful children. She puts her heart and soul into the business, into her family, and all of us, and she's always there when you need her.
She's the real deal. And I promise you this, you'll be hearing from Maria Coakley on a future episode, Coakley David, that is. Speaking of families, you each have kids. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I've got, well, that's a funny story. So I got married really late in life, and I didn't get married till I was 36. So back when I turned 30, my sister Maria would come in and she'd say, "Now, Liam, what are you going to do next year in order to, get things moving along?" And this went on every year until I got married. And so that went on for quite a long time. So it's funny. But they were all very excited and to meet my bride, Caroline. And we have 4 beautiful children, Mary Catherine, Anne Marie. So Mary Catherine's 16, Anne Marie's 13, Nora Claire is 8, and Liam is 4.
4. 16 to 4. That's quite a spread.
That is a spread.
Yeah, are you done?
Yeah, we're done.
How about you, Mike?
So I've got 3 kids. My son Neil is almost 20. My daughter Lauren turns 17 next Friday, and my daughter Evelyn turned 16 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
So my son is at Clemson right now. He's studying construction science, which is pretty cool.
Is he coming back?
We'll see. You know,
What do you think?
I don't know. We'll see.
You coming back?
But so that's cool. My wife and I were both graduates of Clemson, so we were happy that we were able to get one of our kids to go down to Clemson and join our heritage.
Balancing family. I had to do it. I had 4 kids, but balancing family and business, because one without the other, it's important that you do it right, and it's different for everybody. How have you done that over the years as your kids are growing up?
Well, it's tough. I mean, no easy task there, but I mean, we're fortunate enough that we work hard in the business, but at the same time, we've got lots of good people around us, so that if there's something emergency that comes up or something needs to happen, we can do what we need to do. So, fortunate that way that, got lots of, great people to help us in our journey. And so
that's not changing anytime soon with a 4-year-old.
No. I got a lot of colleges to go through.
But he never turns it off. He's always working.
He's always got the phone.
No matter what's going on all day long.
I know.
So yeah, for me, I just when I pull out of here, I turn off CJ Coakley and Prefab Solutions, and I go home and I'm with my kids, and I turn on the dad hat, and it stays there unless there's some emergency. But for the most part, I don't really talk to them about what's going on in my day unless something really cool happens. You certainly don't want to talk to them if something bad happens. So
yeah, and it's like you want to turn it off. But now you guys are co-presidents. That's unusual.
Yeah.
That's one good thing about that is you always have support.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not just one; it's 2. What have been the challenges for you guys to work together seamlessly, or at least appear to be seamlessly, to get the job done? Do you split duties? Tell me how you figure that.
Well, one of the good things that happened to us, probably 15 years ago, is we were actually working with a guy who really helped us, just realize that, 85% of where we're going, you guys are going the same direction. So work on the things where you're going in the right direction with each other, and then we worked on things where we're going in different directions. We have to, go into another room or whatever and try and work it out. But by and large, big picture on where we want to go with the business, we're both very much in tune with what we're trying to do, both see where we want to go, and we're going where we want to go. The good thing about a co-presidency to me is I've got a lot of relationships that I've had through business that I'm able to use to get us work and help us do stuff. And Liam's got a lot of clients and people that he's worked with and have influenced him over years, that he brings a whole other set of clientele that we get to the business that we may or may not have had if we had done things differently. So we have been able to parse things out so that he knows where he's working on certain items and I'm working on the same item somewhere else. And then other things, I'm doing a lot of things that keeps things out of his hair, and then he does a lot of things that are very 5,000 feet where I'm 25,000 feet, trying to figure out how do we make this widget work better and stuff like that. So it's been, for me, that's really how I've enjoyed the relationship.
So, everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses, and, I think that, we both complement our strengths and our weaknesses, and, We both do a lot of similar things together, and in the last few years, putting this prefab together, we've really had a chance to kind of make it ours versus my dad's or somebody else's.
Without a doubt.
So that's been something that's really brought us together in terms of moving the business together, and we've also worked on selling some big jobs together, which is
It's fun.
it is when you can all contribute and get a big win at the end of the day.
Do you know what? You said something I never thought of, is that your fingerprints are all over prefab, right? And that's impressive. And when you think about it, prefab is a pretty decent chunk of the overall. Like, hey, we looking at 2021 for sure. But you're thinking progressively, and you're doing things that you need to. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, you said it earlier, is manpower. So this is a step toward reducing the need for manpower and adding value at the same time. Elevate. Mark Twain once said, and I'm serious, it's the clothes that make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society. The wardrobe was provided by Benchmark Clothiers, custom clothes to fit your lifestyle. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Benchmark Clothiers. And when you go there, tell them Dave sent you. Elevate. I ask everybody this. How would you define success personally? When you look at your life and your business life, your personal life, if there was a couple, 3 sentences, what would it be that would define success for you? How would you want to be thought about?
That's a tough one. Well, I think, success, at the end of the day, money doesn't matter. You can't take it with you. It's a tool that we use, and some people are fortunate enough to have more than others. But I think it's how your family and your loved ones, remember you. And if you look at my mom, all the lives they touched and things she made possible.
I was at the viewing and the funeral, and it was you could feel it.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think what you're saying, I appreciate your openness. What did you do for other people? How did you impact their lives? You use your mother as an example, but I think that's could be said for you too. So you just defined it. Anything?
I mean, it's really did people perceive you as as someone who was helpful? Did you impact other people's? Like Liam said, money's just a part of life. If you didn't have people to share your success with, and you don't have, people who can appreciate what you were able to achieve together, then what's the point? We have a lot of amazing people who work with us for we've got Doug Ayer's been with us almost 50 years. Doug Roach with us, 46 years. John Skiffen has been with us for 31 years. So to me, that defines success. When you've got a lot of people that you're able to keep with you for a long period of time because you've treated them fairly and they feel like they add value to what you're doing day in and day out. That's success to me. We have by far one of the finest field staffs in the country, and it's because we've got a lot of longevity. We took care of a lot of people for a lot of years through good times and bad, and they're all still here. So
I'll say this: you guys just really encapsulated why you are one of 10 out of 100. 10 out of 100. 1 out of 10 companies, second generation companies that are surviving. Yeah. And if you didn't have that,
if you count Doug Ayers as second generation, we're third generation, and that's 2%.
That's unbelievable. So. But because you think the way you do, You know, the markets go up and down, like you said, money, some days you have it, some days you don't. But you always have who you are, and that's good. And I respect you guys both heavily for that. How many guys are working for you right now? Talking about touching lives, how many people are you employed?
Between the two companies, we were around 420 or 430.
430.
Yeah.
Could you ever imagine that when you were a kid?
40, 50 in the office.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine that when you were shoveling snow?
Well, yeah.
Raking leaves?
You know, back in the day, my dad had 700 working for us in the 70s.
Yeah,
that is
in the early,
crazy.
In the early,
We were doing the Resting, the Hyatt, the McLean Hilton. It's crazy for Clark. I mean, we talk about a snowstorm that came in, another snowstorm, and the job was just dying for board. And so my dad, you know, makes a phone call to get board down to the job, and they were dying to get rid of the board because they couldn't get it out of there. So they were truck shipping the board right to the
that's
job.
Right.
So they were just, you know, couldn't wait to get it out of there. Yeah, we'll send it tomorrow.
Timing. So
Yeah, timing.
what keeps you awake at night about the business?
well, you know, for me, you know, a lot of it is liability, and then what do we have that's dangerous? You know, we with the rain screen, you got guys hanging off the side of the building, and so, you know, that's kind of one thing that you worry about, and then, you know, what exposures can you take away from the men so that you're not having them. And then, like when we were doing light gauge construction all around the Beltway area, you know, we couldn't get to all of our work to make sure all the work was installed right. But with prefab, we know it's all right because it's leaving here exactly the way the engineer drawings drawn.
Those roll formers don't make mistakes.
They don't. So
No, but
that takes a lot of your headaches away.
all the screws, the screw spacings, all the details get worked out.
Yep, that's right. Speaking of COVID-19, we are, you know, 6 feet apart. They're part of the same family, so they're okay. How has it impacted your business?
It's been very chaotic, extremely chaotic. You know, we've had days where we were paying 180 people to stay home. So you can't make money when you're paying people to stay home. So it's been challenging. I mean, we've
Mike, if you could explain how that worked, paying people to stay home and then
Right.
trying to get reimbursed for it, and not.
So, you know, in March they passed a law that changed the Family Medical Leave Act, and so if you ended up with COVID-19 or someone you were in contact with has COVID-19, you are required to quarantine, and as soon as they are quarantined by the CDC guidelines, or by the federal law, we have to pay the people to stay home. So we had several jobs that were shut down for 8 to 10 days because they had a bunch of cases on the job. So when they shut down, then we still have to pay the men, because if we don't pay them, they'll go get a job somewhere else. So it was, you know, a very stressful period of time.
So, to my understanding, is you took that, whatever, you paid $10,000 for guys that didn't work, let's say. You got a break because you didn't have to pay the payroll taxes, or how did that work? So you weren't out of pocket all that money.
You're out of pocket. I mean, ultimately, what you can accrue the money and tell them you're not going to. You take part of your workman's comp, and you can say, okay, I paid this much money, I'm not going to pay you this. But ultimately, when you're dealing with hundreds of people, it's more money than what your workman's compensation ends up being. So they're only crediting you for part of it. So, you know, it's difficult. And then when people get to the jobs, you know, they don't want to be there. They're all freaked out because they might get COVID on the job, and, you know, so your productions go down, and then the workforce rules on the job are a lot more difficult. And then just getting men to where they go is really difficult. If you can only put 3 people in an elevator, and you got a 30-story building, and you got to have, you know, 20 men on every floor, you know, it gets.
So there's real hard costs.
Oh, there's definitely real hard costs.
There's distraction
Not
everywhere
to
else.
mention it was all evolving, you know, constantly.
Every day, you didn't know.
Every day is a different day.
So yesterday I went to a topping out party, and it was different because the owner of the general contractor was in the middle of a parking lot. It was all fenced off. You had to walk in and get a temperature test, get a box lunch. Everybody had to stay 6 feet apart. But it was almost like it was normal, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember walking on a job West Roslyn when it was the stuff hit the fan, and it's like it was a ghost town. And a guy over here was sick on the north building, and you had to follow where he was the day before.
How about when it first started? There was nobody on the road. I mean, literally
nobody.
You could go anywhere. And
that was nice, actually.
I
You could go around a beltway
any time of day.
But you couldn't go anywhere because nothing was open.
But,
we will talk about this forever. I mean, this is the pandemic. I mean, who would have thought? Now, luckily for us in the industry, the industry's pretty good.
Getting back to the story is whatever it takes to get back to some kind of business is whatever we need to do, right? So if that means wearing masks, that means, or social distancing, whatever the protocols are, we got to get back to the business.
So just for you listeners, we have a policy here in this building that if you're in a common area like we are now and you're not socially distanced, of course we are, everybody wears a mask. That's just the way it is. And it's okay. It's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
The problem for me is sometimes I'll get up and walk out and forget it. And oh, geez, one of those things.
Well, anywhere you go into any place, I forgot. I got to go back into my car, go back,
So let's end on a high note. Proudest moments for you guys, for you first. Proudest moments in the business for you personally, and you looking at the company as part of who you are.
Why you gotta pick me first?
Michael?
Easy.
Yeah, he's as easy.
Yeah, easy. Phoenix project.
I love that. Didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So Phoenix project. Mm-hmm. So fortunately and unfortunately, we were the contractor who did the drywall on Wedge 1 of the Pentagon. And when they renovated that whole side of the building, and fortunately for everyone, on September 11th, the plane hit that side of the building where our construction was going on. And fortunate because we were 2 days away from turning the building over, so it was very empty in the building. So very few people were injured as a result of the plane damage. The people who died in the Pentagon were more as a result of smoke asphyxiation. So at any rate, the Phoenix project was the project that brought that Wedge 1 back together, put it back together in a year. And so we ended up having guys on the job we weren't able to get in. It took us 2 years to build Wedge 1, and we built it back in less than 8 months because they'd had 3 months of demo and rebuild it stuff before we could even get in. So once they brought us in, we had to go in and get it rebuilt. And it was an amazing thing to watch because we had a superintendent on the job who would come in every morning with a list of all the things that weren't done. And most of the stuff would be attributable to us. And so we decided that, not all the things were really attributable to us. He just didn't know the whole story. So we found out he was walking the job at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and we started joining him with his walk and explaining to him why all the stuff wasn't really done. And so then when he would go to his 6 o'clock meeting with the rest of the people, he would know the rest of the story. So he would really go after everyone else. So before you know it, the entire, all the subcontractors on the job were meeting at 3 o'clock in the morning and walking the job with this guy to, see what was wrong before we got there. And it was really cool because all the people on the job, they really reshuffled all their work every day, almost every day, because of whatever problem someone else was having. So by 6 o'clock, they had a plan to reshuffle all the men for the day so they get the work done. None of the guys got paid for any of that time. All the guys did it on volunteer because they just wanted to get the building built.
More to it than commercial. I mean, just a commercial interest. It's like almost patriotic.
Yeah.
The people on the job. I was on that job. I mean, that was the only time I went for you guys.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing feeling. Do you still have Donald Rumsfeld's plaque?
Oh yeah, it's hanging on my desk.
Yeah,
we were all there at the opening.
Yep. All right.
So that was very cool.
That was a great job. You run City Center and
City Center.
How was that? Crazy?
That was a very tough job for us, and it was during a very obviously difficult time, 2010. So the bottom of the bottom. So that was a job that I was heavily involved in, and just getting that one under and completed was a great accomplishment. So because it was such a big job, it was 2 towers, 460 units. Between the 2 towers, 12 stories, and then 500,000 square feet of office buildings, 2 towers as well. So 4 buildings over the course of 18 months. So,
well, we talked a week or two ago with Vic Cornelia and Pete, father son, and he mentioned the same job. He said it was incredible, tough, but really. It was a memorable job for them too. So if you were back and you were getting out of college and you were looking for something to do, you wanted to get in business, what advice would you have for somebody?
Get out. Don't do it.
So why is the drywall business? It seems so tough. Now I don't feel bad for either of you guys because you're doing okay.
Yeah, right.
But it ain't an easy business.
No, it's got a lot of moving parts.
It's got a tremendous amount.
You're
but there's low cost to entry, right?
Right.
You're responsible for everything. Everybody blames everything on you.
So you're telling people like your son, don't get in the drywall business.
No, I mean, construction is an amazing business. There's no better wealth creating business in the country than construction. You can start as low as the lowest guy, and you can become like my father. You can start a plaster, and you can end up a guy who employs 600 people. So I would say if you want to get involved in the business, it's a lot of fun. It is but you are going to work hard.
It's demanding.
You're going to have to give it as much time as is required. But there's no better vehicle in the country to be successful.
So I hope that you guys, young, old, doesn't matter. If you're looking to get in business, this is a good business. Now, in another podcast I do, I talk about starting a business, and I always say that your reason for doing whatever it is you're going to do, it's got to be strong, because of the crap that you're going to have to get through to make it. The reason why you're doing it has to be really strong. But if you have a strong desire to be something more than what you are, and it doesn't mean you have to own the business.
No.
Even working your way, look at the people that have stayed with you forever, but they weren't stagnant, right? They grew.
Oh yeah. Well, you look at our 2 superintendents right now. Both of them I don't think they've either both worked for anybody but us. They started as apprentices. They worked their way up to being a carpenter, and they worked their way to be a lead guy, and they worked their way up to be a foreman. And one of them was a super elite foreman, and then they worked their way up to superintendent. And those guys, they're can-do people, and they see where we want to go, and they're like, let's go. So
integral part of the team.
But it's as they've learned that being a foreman and being the superintendent is a big difference.
Sure is. Yeah.
Huge difference. Night and day difference. So
you have some good ones. So I really want to thank you again for doing this. I know it takes time away from your family, but this is something that through this process you've been able to share your story with others, and I hope that those that are listening understand it, that who the Michael and Liam are now, a little bit about your history, and more importantly about where you're going. You're thinking progressively. You got prefab started. You're doing rain screen. I love to see the evolution of the business. You guys are young. You got plenty of years left. What do you see in closing? What do you see in the future of C.J. Coakley and Company?
One thing I can guarantee we see is change. It will not be the same 5 years that it is today. I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be different.
It's changed
So,
a lot in the last 5 years. That's for
we've
sure.
seen more things come and go that were revolutionary things that everybody thought was awesome stuff, and they're all in the tar pit. So it will be different.
Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing today, and we'll leave it there.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. Stay safe and stay tuned.
Elevate, 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 elevate.
All the music for the episodes, including our theme song Elevate, was provided by DMV producer Trey Skills. If you like what you heard, follow Trey Skills on Instagram at Trey Skills, TreySkillz. That's TreySkillz. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Elevate Industry. Check out my YouTube channel at Commercial Construction, Elevate the Industry. Visit my website, adicorp.com, ADICORP.com. Go to LinkedIn, search for David Procida, hit connect, and follow me. Please rate, review, and comment on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week.